Let's take a look at solving using the quadratic formula. Now, in the past, of course, we've been able to solve by taking a quadratic equation, we factorized it, we've made it equal to 0, and we found the x value. So let's have a look at how we do that. So nice and simple stuff. Here we go. So let's imagine, for example, you had, and I'll choose the simplest one, which we can reasonably do, an x squared, say, plus, say, a 6x plus an 8. And we'll make that equal to 0. We want to find out what values of x would make that true. So the first step is to factorize. And to factorize, we're saying what things multiply together to give 8. Of course, the factors of 8, and I'll just put a little sidebar out here. So I've got 8 is 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. And which of those things add together to give us a 6? So I'm going to write an x and an x. By the way, I know the signs are going to be the same in here. They're either both going to be positive or they're both going to be negative, because that sign there is a positive. The sign here tells me that the signs are going to be the same. If that was a negative, then the signs would be different. There would be a positive and a negative, or negative and a positive. Wouldn't matter which way around. But in this case, they're the same. So they're both negative or they're both positive. So this one tells me they're the same. This one tells me that they're both positive. So I'm going to put a plus here and a plus here. All right, now I've got other videos on this, which I'll let you have a look at in your own time. So we're going to choose the two things that add together to give 6, which is 2 and 4, and multiply together to give 8, which is also 2 and 4. So I'm going to put a 2 and a 4. It does not matter which order they go in. So now we've got two things. We've got this thing here. Now the brackets, by the way, mean you treat the contents as one thing. So we've got one thing here and another thing here. And if you've got two things that are multiplied together that equal 0, you know that either this one has to be 0, or this one has to be 0, or they both have to be 0. But in order for something to multiply together to give 0, one of the terms must be a 0. So you could say that either x plus 2 is 0. And if that was the case, we can subtract 2 from both sides. Here we are. X would have to be negative 2. And that makes sense, because if I put a negative 2 into here, 2 and negative 2 is 0, and this becomes a 0. And anything times 0 is, of course, 0. Or x plus 4 would have to be 0. And if that was the case, what would x have to be? Well, if I subtract 4 from both sides, we can algebraically solve it. X would have to be, negative 4. So, of course, if I put a negative 4 in here, then this would be 0. And 0 times anything is still going to be 0. So these are going to be true. So either we could say x is negative 2 or x is negative 4. Or if you want to write it a little bit more professionally, you could write it as using set notation, set builder notation. So we put the smallest one first, negative 4 smallest, and we put the larger one second, comma 2. So there they are. And that would be my solution. But what say the equation is such that when we come and try and put it in brackets, we can't. It doesn't readily fall into nice, neat integers like a 4 or a 5 or 6 or negative 7. This doesn't occur. It might be negative 6.3741 something or other, and something else. So what do you do in that case? Because you're not going to find those quickly and readily. So what we do is we use the quadratic equation to resolve that. So let's take a look at the equation we've got, and let's have a look at how we would put that into the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula says that we take the b term and we add it and subtract it. We do both. We add and subtract to find the x value. And we add or subtract to the square of b minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Well, what does all that mean? Well, let's have a look at the equation. The equation here is x squared plus 6x plus 8. Now, whenever you have a quadratic equations are usually written in the form of y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. But really it's cx to the 0. So this is ax to the 2, bx to the 1, cx to the 0. It's still an x, but of course anything to the power of 0 is 1. So in other words, we just write it as a c. So let's have a look what we've got. We've got an x squared plus 6x plus 8. Now we look at the coefficients. They're the things in front of them. Well, what's the thing in front of the x squared that makes it an x squared? Well, we can't see anything, but of course it must be a 1. 1 times x squared is x squared. So the a value in this case is going to be a 1. What about the b value? Oh, well, you can see it straight away. The b value is a 6. It's the coefficient of the x to the 1, or just the x, because x to the 1 is x. And what about the c term? Well, c is 8. It's the x to the 0 term, or just an 8 on its own. So we've now got a and b and c. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take the equation and we're going to populate the equation with a is 1, b is 6, and c is 8. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll do that on the next sheet, and let's see how that plays out.